keep an eye on recording if we come live again. So Ms. Karen Hurt has started our recording for this evening, and then we'll hope we have no downtime with power outages and we just keep an eye on the little red dot and then restart if we come back. So I'll just give everybody a few more minutes. Okay, top of the hour. And here comes Mr. Terpstra. So we'll start the meeting and welcome everyone on this dreary last week before we go into daylight savings and such as we go onward. We still have daylight savings. I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting this evening on the shared territory of the Qualicum and Snohomish First Nations, and we thank them for allowing us to live, work, play, and learn in this beautiful part of our island, although it is blustery tonight. With the adoption of the agenda, I'll call for a motion, but I would like to add under 17B an additional trustee item shared by myself and trustee Kellogg on the provincial council update from our BC School Trustees Association. So that will be item 17B. So I saw trustee Young raise her hand to adopt the agenda. Could I have a seconder, please? The raise hand feature helps me. Thank you, trustee Kellogg. All those in favor? And maybe I'm going to start pinning everybody again. I don't know. Here we go. Raise hand. I'm can't. Julie, we're okay. If you can stay on screen, please. Thank you, carried. And then approval of the consent agenda as presented. A mover, please. Thank you, trustee Kellogg. Seconded, trustee Young. All those in favor of the consent agenda? Thank you very much. Or we're all good. Okay. Onward then to the, there's no delegations, no pre-submitted public questions this evening. We'll go to the business arising from the minutes. And as you recall at our meeting last month, the board rose out of our in-camera discussion, the disposition of the Craig Street Commons, and this evening we need to proceed with two motions, one reflecting that desire by the school district to not have formerly known as Parksville Elementary, now Craig Street Commons, as an educational institution, as known in the lexicon of the Ministry of Education, and will no longer be required then for our purposes. I didn't ask for any comments from Mr. Amos beforehand, but do you wish to make comments before we deal with these two items, or do you just proceed?
Yeah, and no, the briefing note speaks to it, and again, I'll just kind of highlight where we're at. Again, really just introducing it, make sure individuals are understanding where we're at. So the briefing note just speaks to the background of where we're at. We talked about the closure in 2014 for educational uses, when 3 schools of the day were closed through the process that the board dealt with, and then in that time, in 10 years time, that school has been used for a rental site. Again, lots of public information on that over the last 18 months, as we talked through finance and ops about the struggles the district is having on being able to maintain the facilities, and the worry and the concerns, obviously, of the capital improvements that needed that we don't get funded for. All of that to bring forward to today, that basically we're having closed the site effective January 1st, 2026. The board is in the position, if you want, to make a decision on what's next for that site. And so the recommendation that's being brought forward is two-part. Obviously, number one, the declaration that it is not going to be required for future educational purposes, and that's kind of explained in the very last paragraph that speaks to about the Beauregard enrollment projections, indicating that there's no perceived need for it over the foreseeable future. It's certainly acknowledged that the Parksville Qualicum school area is growing in terms of population and growth, but it's not in school-age children. We recognize it's a popular seniors area, but it's certainly not necessarily growing to the extent that we need an additional site. And any developments that are occurring can be handled with our existing facilities. And if they do get tight, we've got obviously our first response is catchment to potentially move kids to the areas that have capacity. But again, to any great extent, we're not growing by leaps and bounds, and generally speaking, our capacities at our sites can manage obviously the enrollment that we're projecting over the next 10, 20 years. And then the second part to that obviously is the actual disposition process. And so in order for staff to seek approval from the ministry, the board needs to make that declaration to obviously direct staff to seek ministerial approval, which can take up to 6 months, because within that they've got a 90-day due diligence on their part. And this is Ministry of Infrastructure, that they'll do their part on seeking out other alternatives to the site. Should it be some of the other governmental agencies. And so they will make those overtures if there's a need or a demand for the site. All that's saying is basically setting up that now is the sort of the time for the board to make that declaration. Back to you.
Thanks, Ron. So we have the first motion on the table. We'll deal with them separately this evening, trustees. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the first? Moved by trustee Kellogg, seconded trustee Young.
Trustee Young. And actually, I was going to move both of them at the same time. Is there a will on the part of the board to move both of them at the same time?
Do them separate. Do them separate. Do them separate. There's no advantage. Yeah, there's no advantage to doing them as one.
Yeah, they're separate issues. In my mind, they're separate. Yeah.
And then I'll speak to it when we're ready.
Trustee Kellogg moved. Trustee Young has seconded. Are there questions, trustees? And trustee Young, could you take your hand down, then I can follow who may have comments. Trustee Austin.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right. Excuse me. Thank you very much. I have a comment and then a question. My comment would be, if these motions are adopted this evening, I would like our board to consider having the conversation around what would be involved in terms of money and process, to consider putting a covenant on those two lots that would enshrine that those properties are kept for community use, much like a board that had a number of years ago that had quite a bit of foresight and put covenant on the little piece of land in Qualicum on the corner there opposite QF. And I find that was great foresight by that board. And I would like us to consider doing that as well, so that any potential people coming to the table would be aware that that might be on those titles. So I'm just asking the board to consider that, and that we hopefully would have a conversation around what that would look like.
Trustee Austin?
The next, I do have a
sorry?
question.
Sorry.
And my question is to Ron. I'm just wondering, Ron, if you can lay out for us, just that we're all clear in our heads, what the process is in terms of, there are some entities in the province that kind of have first come, first serve, or first come or first right of refusal on those properties. And if you could just run down for us who they are and what that would look like.
So
Yes,
that probably pertains more to the second half of the motion, but that's okay. Go for it. If we were doing them all together, it would be pertinent. But anyway, Mr. Amos, please.
okay. Yes, I led into it a little bit in terms of the second part. Absolutely. The second part is seeking of permission to dispose of the site. And so we do that by a letter off to the Ministry of Infrastructure these days, who has the portfolio of most ministerial facilities, buildings, and property development. And so they manage the facilities on behalf of the capital, the K-12 public education capital programs, i.e. buildings and new additions. They manage the post-secondary ministries. They handle health, which includes obviously hospital and other public health institutions. And they have, if you want, they've got obviously influence over some of the other parties that are that come into governmental jurisdiction. So through them, and I'm just kind of thinking in terms of an easy way of expressing it, but they have their hands in terms of they've got their hands in areas where people are seeking public lands to do things, and so they tend to be the what's the word I want? They tend to be the holders of all that information, and so they tend to know who needs what, and likewise people like francophone authorities, other public educational institutions know to go through them if there's want for land or for buildings. They manage it on behalf of the government, so as a provincial government agency. So through that 90-day process that they will do after we ask the letter, they will do their own due diligence in reaching out to individual organizations. I kind of call it, they look at their whiteboard to find out where the asks are, where the demands are, and they would put us together. That's not to say that other agencies can't, once you make your declaration one way or the other, can't advocate to us ourselves, and then we would put them in touch with infrastructure. But point being, they would be the individuals that basically manage that transaction, and because of that, they would the expectation is that the other agencies would pay, in our case, ourselves, fair market value for that transaction. Basically, they create the handshake. We're the ones that at the end of the day still will receive the proceeds from the sale, but they are the entity that not only will obviously sign off on the disposition, but will also advocate on behalf of other agencies if they come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Amos.
Does that help
Trustee
answer?
Young?
Thank you.
That is a good answer. Yeah, so I support both of these motions. I came on the board approximately 11 years ago, just as we closed those buildings to being schools. And over the last 11 years, I have thought again and again, like, this is a beautiful piece of land right in the middle of the city that I live in, called Parksville. And somebody from the community is going to step up and say, wow, this would make a great community center. This would be, and we've had some proposals over the years, and none of them really have been willing to give us either fair market value or longer term relationship that has been beneficial to the kids that are in our system now. And I think for me, I have become more and more focused with the help of this board on let's be supporting the children that we have in our care right now. Let's make sure that they've got adequate facilities. Let's make sure that they care about the facilities, on and on. I think about well, we've been hinting at this in finance and operations, I think, for probably about 9-10 years. That eventually these buildings are going to have to be taken over by somebody. We wanted it to be a community. And about 6 years ago, we got going on the, okay, you know, like we're really saying this. I think it's time that we move forward and we, you know, we make it abundantly clear that we are not going to hold on to these buildings for the benefit of our community because we can't afford it. And to Trustee Austin's point, I'm willing to talk about covenants. I'm willing to go there. However, I have some concerns because we have that covenant on the Qualicum that makes Qualicum Commons really complicated. And we've had a covenant on another piece of property that we sold a long time ago, and they just don't seem to hold very well. So I'm willing to have the discussion. I'm willing to listen, but I really want to move us forward tonight. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Trustee Austin. Trustee Kellogg.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so because I'm a newer trustee, the covenant that is on that piece of property on the parking lot in Qualicum, I don't really understand how that has benefited the parcel of land that's there. And I don't know if they could just not honor that covenant and move on to that. I do like the idea of transferring a piece of property to somebody that's buying it and it be for community use. I also live in Parksville, and I think there's lots of stuff that could go on in Parksville that land would be really beneficial for the residents of Parksville to have, particularly the kids. So I would definitely, if there's a covenant that could go on that piece of property that would be valid and it would be honored as time goes on, I would be really happy with that. But Ron, I was just going to ask for a little bit more clarification. So when you were talking about other bodies that could request that land, like Island Health, if they had a need or there was a usage that they had, they could come, and even though they would pay market value, they would have first dibs on, like, or, you know, like the Francophone community and so on and so forth. Those people would have first dibs on that property if there is a need in any of those communities. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. Yeah. First dibs. When Minister of Education were handling it, independent of the other ministries, the messaging was other public education, Francophone particularly, would have first priority. Independent schools to a certain extent would have kind of a second priority, but with Minister of Infrastructure stepping in to take the portfolios, they act, the word I was looking for is a clearinghouse. So they act as the clearinghouse of other agencies coming forward saying, we're looking for space within this region. Is there any, are there any public lands available that we can have a transaction or we can transact on? And so they basically become that vetting perspective of the interest, the supplies, and the demands of public type lands, facilities. And I was going to say, and attached to that, but to a lesser extent, obviously, municipalities have access to that same forum. They transact slightly different because they're independent from the ministry agencies. They act a little bit independently in terms of the terms of how they get, how they gain funding, because they've got naturally within municipalities, they've got a taxing authority. But point being, through the Ministry of Infrastructure, they become the clearinghouse of supply and demand of these properties.
Thank you, Mr. Amos. All really good discussion, trustees. So the motion is on the table now, moved and seconded by trustee Young and trustee Kellogg, that the Board of Education School District 69 Qualicum confirm that lot 1 and 2, Plan VIP 17240, District Lot 13, the Newsland District, known as the former Parksville Elementary School property, will not be required for future educational purposes by the Board of Education. Call the question, trustees. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried unanimously. And to take us into the second part of our discussion this evening, I would move that the Board of Education School District 69 Qualicum seek approval from the Ministry of Infrastructure to proceed with the disposition of Lot 1 and Lot 2 Plan VIP 17240, District Lot 13, the Newsland District, known as the former Parksville Elementary School property. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, trustee Kellogg. Are there any further questions, trustees? I think Mr. Amos's background paper and commentary has encompassed both of these motions. But are there any other comments? Trustee Austin.
Thanks. I'll just put it in here. Do we need a motion after this, or will it just be understood that hopefully we'll have a conversation around covenants, what they mean, what they look like, what's involved with them, how much they cost? Should that be a motion to have going forward, or?
I think we probably need a lot of background on what it is and what if it really can work. But to know, I think that we're all in agreement with you, because this has been something you've raised a number of times, that it won't be lost. No.
And sorry if I could just interject.
Sure.
And my suggestion would be that it's certainly something that we can tease out over the course of time. Absolutely. It's one of these information sessions that we can hold with the board. Of the implications, and again, maybe it starts with a briefing note that I can bring you, whether it's in camera, whether it's informal, whether it's public. But point being, absolutely, we can have a follow-up discussion on what the pros and cons of these covenants are, but certainly for a later date when we have a little bit more time.
Yeah,
okay, thank you very much.
We have a pretty big window with Ministries of Infrastructure has to do their work, and so I think we're okay there. So seeing no further hands raised, I'll call a question. All those in favor of our second motion this evening? Carried unanimously. Thank you, folks. And now I'll move on to Manara Smith Teachers Association and our president, Matt Wood. Matt, over to you.
Hi, Awana. Bonsoir and good evening, everyone. Just take a few points for tonight's report. First, I want to acknowledge the hard work of the provincial specialist associations, the PSAs, for supporting and organizing all the teacher professional development that happened just last Friday, October 24th. As many of you know, across the province and in our district, teachers participated in a variety of professional development activities that, for the most part, specifically focused on areas of choice for teachers and usually their specialty areas. A reminder that teachers take their professional development seriously. Just a bit of history here. In 1972, that's when it was first advocated by the BCTF, and they were successful in putting professional development days into the school calendar. The goal was to provide time during the school year for professional growth, for collaboration, and to stay current with the changes in education. Today, we have a provincial day, which was last Friday, 3 district days, one of which will be 3 district professional development days, which will be November 24th on the Monday. It would be the first one of this year. And we had a ministry day back in September. All these days are dedicated to teaching for teacher professional growth. These days were added to school calendars, meaning that teachers were working more days in the school year. These additional days did not impede on student learning, and there was no loss of instruction for students. Also want to note that often the facilitators and organizers of these professional development conferences and sessions are also teachers teaching in the classroom. So I commend all that time, dedication, and the extreme efforts that these individuals bring to support their colleagues through the professional development model. This also includes our own local in-district professional development teachers who, including the work they do for their classrooms, are also organizing the events this year in our local. So thank you to all those that put on these days. They are meaningful and important. Second point is MATA fully supports item 17 on tonight's agenda and the 3 recommendations that are coming to the board. Those recommendations come at a time when we know that the funding model for public education is flawed. Why the provincial government continues to directly fund private schools to the tune of over $570 million is appalling, while at the same time cutting funding to public schools and creating situations for school districts to have to rely on something called funding protection to operate, as we know. These private schools are exclusive. Public money towards institutions should be accessible to all public. Public tax dollars should be supporting public schools. The Mount Arrowsmith Teachers Association is in full support of these recommendations. Thanks to trustees for taking a stand for public education, and looks forward to working with and being a part of anything that will be signed and sent off to the ministry. Finally, just a quick word of caution. There's notice of Minister Briere's childcare spaces, and I know the ministry is proud of these, and we also support childcare, affordable childcare in the province. I think one of the things that may have been overlooked was the use of school facilities, but it does make sense to use those school facilities. And also the concern that we now are the Minister of Childcare, Education and Childcare. So there is a concern that we stay on top of these messages, and that, as with all ministry initiatives, they start with a little bit of money and then they tend to not fund some of their initiatives. And it is up to trustees and our senior admin to find a way to utilize the monies to support all these different initiatives. So there's a concern that may fall into education, and that could get blurred in the future. So I hope trustees stay on top of that as we move forward. I urge all stakeholders to stay vigilant in ensuring that funding for schools and funding for childcare are adequate for both, or more than adequate for both. As always, I look forward to working with all education stakeholders this year to create an environment that is trusting, relational, and supportive for students, as well as my members. An environment that supports teachers to thrive will also support students to thrive. Merci, Haisepqua. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Wood. QP Local 3570, President Ewan Rycroft, I think you're here. Over to you.
All right, thank you. I don't have a report at this time. However, I am concerned about the direction of the relationship with the employer, and I hope it improves for successful bargaining and collaboration ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rycroft. District Parent Advisory Council, Marina.
Yes. On behalf of DPAC, I'd like to thank district staff and trustees for their openness to parent and caregiver voices. We appreciate the opportunity to be involved in the committee of the whole meetings and to meet monthly with the superintendent. These conversations strengthen collaboration and understanding between parents, caregivers, and district leadership. Parents and caregivers are deeply concerned about the potential sale of Craig Street Commons. The BC government's own policy states that only in exceptional circumstances should a board consider permanently disposing of school property. What will be the long-term impact to our children with the permanent closure and sale of this community school? Research shows that keeping children in their local community schools improves attendance, academic engagement, and family involvement. When these schools close, the effects ripple outward. Students face longer commutes, weaker connections with their communities, and we lose gathering spaces, and districts see higher busing costs and increased emissions that work against climate goals. We ask for more transparency on student enrollment projections. Are future housing developments in the area factored into forecasting? While current projections show an enrollment decline, we know community growth can change quickly, as we saw during the pandemic when many families moved to smaller communities. Will the district be able to accommodate an increase in students if this happens again? Parents and caregivers want to be engaged in upcoming boundary change discussions. Families appreciate clarity on when and how these decisions will be made and communicated, and assurance that community input will be genuinely considered before any changes are finalized. Safe routes to schools remain a major concern. We encourage the district to take a leadership role in coordinating discussions and solutions with municipal and provincial partners. The challenges are particularly visible at Springwood Elementary and Oceanside, but impact many schools across the district. This isn't just a safety issue. It also limits families' abilities to choose active travel options, which also has implications on students' health and our climate goals. We are pleased to see the minister's announcement about 900 new childcare spaces across BC. That's really exciting. But what does that mean for our local families? With the closing of Craig Street Commons, are daycare spots decreasing in the region? We hope the district can clarify what this provincial childcare investment announcement means for Oceanside families and how that will impact the current before and after school wait lists. And finally, we want to echo Trustee Kellogg's report highlighting the need for a district policy on the use of Feeding Futures funds. We support better coordination and universal access to school food programs to reduce stigma. DPAC once again expresses our interest in joining a district food program working group to help ensure these funds are used equitably and effectively. We look forward to continuing to work collaboratively with the district on these important issues. Thank you for the opportunity to share the perspectives of parents and caregivers across our district. Thank you.
Thanks, Marina. That's a great report. A lot of good topics to follow through on. Trustee Austin, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you very much for that, Marina. Those were all very excellent points. I'm just going to say, I know DPAC, members of DPAC are very busy. They sit on all sorts of committees and are doing all sorts of things. Here's another one you might consider. There is a group locally called the ELCO. Early learning
Coalition.
Childcare Coalition of Oceanside.
Okay.
And they're a coalition of a number of groups. The school district sits on it, the private and public childcare space operators sit on it. Our local we have municipal representation and RDN representation, and anybody is welcome to join those.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, perhaps
Yeah.
I will send you a link to Carol, who's the chair. And if somebody has time, it's well worth sitting in on those because they keep a lot of that information and also questions like you would have, they would also seek answers to. So it's a good group for you if somebody has time.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, no action items this evening. Information items, superintendent report. Dr. Jory, over to you.
Thank you, Chair Flynn. Hello, everyone. It's Squale. Bonjour. Happy October to all and welcome to fall in the Qualicum School District. For those of you following the Blue Jays, last night's game did in fact equal the longest World Series game ever at 18 innings, as late as it was for us here on the West Coast. Let's be glad we are not following the match back in Toronto where it did not wrap up until 3 a.m. Do understand that Shohei Ohtani's hometown school watched the entire game as it started at 9 a.m. Japan time, then went all the way to their day end. I was wondering, would I approve such a thing in the Qualicum School District if we had produced such a player? Probably. In any event, let's hope the rest of the games are over much more quickly and with a more favorable result as far as we're concerned. That being said, I'm pleased to report that the energy in schools remains positive. It's great to see students settle into their learning and our teams continuing to build on the good work that began in September. A few quick updates from across the school district. We've decided to move our boundary town hall to January, a topic already raised this evening, in order to make room for a special learning services presentation that we will put out prior to winter break and the concert season. This idea came to us from our DPAC after hearing about a similar and very well-received event in the Comox School District. The presentation will be held online and will focus on supporting your students through the IEP process. We'll also include an electronic feedback form so that we can gather perspectives from parents and caregivers to give us help us better understand our current practice and the needs of our students. Our vice principal pool competition on Friday went very, very well. I'd like to thank all the candidates for their interest, of course, and the panel members for their time and care that they brought to the process. We hope to make an announcement about our newest additions once all the appropriate parties have been contacted. On the enrollment front, we now have a clearer picture and can say that we are officially out of funding protection, but just barely. That does mean we'll have some degree of flexibility when it comes to service level adjustments, but we'll still need to be cautious about adding any new costs moving forward. More on that to follow in a few moments. We've also had a number of excellent professional learning events recently, including our Ministry Day sessions hosted at schools, circle learning with Leighton Schnellert, and a cultural competency session with Shailene McRae. Each of these opportunities has contributed meaningfully to our collective learning culture and to ongoing focus on improving instruction, supporting all learners through an Indigenous lens. It's been enjoyable to visit our schools lately and hear how our principals and teachers are moving our strategic plan forward in schools and classrooms. My key question this time around was about what teachers have selected for their classroom goals and which of the E's in the school sets were getting the most attention. This also led to check-ins on their literacy plans and then on to any number of topics germane to the operation of the schools and ongoing or emerging instructional challenges and how we might collectively support them. Friday, of course, is Halloween, and while there are pros and cons to this auspicious occasion landing on a weekend, hopefully everyone can catch up on their sleep Saturday morning. Personally, I'm hoping the rain comes in starting around 8 p.m., and I'm sure more than a few parents agree with that notion. As always, thank you to everyone across the school district who continues to work so hard for students each and every day, whether you clear the walkways, check the fountains, rotate the bus tires, handle the parent calls, or teach, support, or lead on behalf of students in any way. Your efforts are noted and deeply appreciated. Mesepko, everyone. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Dr. Jory. Any questions, trustees? Seeing none, I'll move then to the preliminary enrollment summary report. Ms. Wilson, the 1701.
Good evening, everyone. I'm actually going to share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about with my mouse. So just give me a second here. And you should be able to see the screen. For those of you that like the paper version and don't want to squint into the screen, this is page 26 on the agenda package. So this is the numbers that we did our staffing and how we looked at what our budget projections would be and how we staffed our
Ms. Wilson, may I just interrupt for just a second and just remind everybody that if there's a plus button down in the bottom left corner of your screen,
bigger
and
for those of us who can't
you
see.
can pop that a couple times and
I can make it
ideally make that bigger for us. And I think you could do it in your own screen at home too. So just a little tip to get that font size up just a wee bit for those of us that don't see very well anymore.
Thank you. This is on page 26, as I mentioned, but I thought I'd put it on screen so you can see what we're talking about. You see the actuals for 2024, what our budget amounts were. Can you see my cursor there? Somebody give me a heads up, cursor. And then what our numbers came in when we did our 1701 count, which is the count we do for September 30th. So you can see Bolinas, this is the regular program. The FI is the French immersion program. So you can see last year we had 125. We budgeted for 135. We've got 133. We had a bubble going in this year. And for those of the parents that are French immersion, this is one of the first years in a long time that we've done a blended class of a grade 8, 9 at the secondary school level. So overall, our budget projections, our numbers that we projected for our secondary school enrollment was down by 10, but hold that thought for a moment. If you look at the False Bay has gone up by 7 students. And if you recall from a previous board meeting, our False Bay school is actually now a K-12 school. So there are 7 students who should actually pop up into here, into the secondary students, but we've not changed our sheet yet and not changed our format. So we did a really good job of our projected numbers and how we staffed our schools. The pluses and minuses between Qualicum and Pass and Bolinas is sometimes students make different choices. Some of the students want to do the football program at Bolinas, so they go to Bolinas and we do a cross enroll instead of being at KSF. And we had a number of our students that wanted to be in the alternative program this year that were from both of our schools. So overall, our projected enrollment for our secondary schools was pretty close. The elementary level, you can see, again, what we projected and what our current enrollment was, and then the difference between them. I don't think there's anything of note there. We had some families move into our community, and it seems to be that the students that were moving into our community were predominantly at that grade 4 through 6 at the elementary level. So that seemed to be our targeted area there. So you can see the school-based was a decline of 9 overall. And then we look at our KEEP program. We had continuing education is for those students that are actually students that are mature students, and they're often over the age of 18, and they're picking up an odd course here and there. We're not quite on target for our online learning, and we hope for our second and third count we're able to pick that up. But I do want to show you another report, and so if you can bear with me for just a moment, which shows you the trends that we're facing right now with our cohorts. And so this particular table is something of note, and I think it's come up in a couple of conversations tonight. And again, if you can't see the numbers, if you press plus on the left-hand side of your screen at the bottom there, you'll be able to see it. I have enlarged it a little bit on my screen. I'll do it a little bit more, but I'm not sure if I can get all the numbers on if I do that. Okay, so what this sheet is actually current. I took it as of today, October the 28th, and this is our cohort groupings. So this is our early learning. These are children that are registered in our Strong Start program. So those are affectionately known as Munchkinlands in our community, and that's the number of students that are currently registered through MyEd in our Strong Start programs. We're really interested in our kindergarten all the way through to our grade 12. These are the numbers that are each of the schools' enrollment at the particular grade level. But of note to us and what we're watching and trending is we've got 232 children who are registered in our kindergarten class. That includes children who are also registered in what's called our homeschool program, and they're not part of our online learning, but they're part of connecting to the school that might want to borrow the library and things like that. We have about 20 across our system in kindergarten through grade 7. But look at the numbers of kindergarten here and compare that to the number of children that are in our grade 12 cohort. Even looking at our grade 11s, our grade 3s is when we're under the 300 mark. So we watch this trend as we start to do our planning, and this trend of being under 300 for cohorts is not changing according to what Barago report is telling us, which is the actual births in our community plus some migration factors in there. So I thought I'd share that with you as well in terms of what our enrollment came in at for our September 30th count. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson. Trustees, any questions? Seeing none, we can move on to then your class size report of page 27 in your package this evening, folks. Page 27, and this is a requirement, a ministry requirement to submit. Ms. Wilson.
And you can see from the class size report, would you like me to share the screen again so people can see it, or is everybody seeing that share the screen? Okay, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
It may not need to be expanded very much.
No. So these are classes that we have to report that are over 30 as of September 30th. And you can see from here that all but 2 of them are actually choir music. We often get comments from our music teachers that they can produce a better sound when there's more children playing different instruments. These classes do have, we do have conversations with the teachers, and they are part of what we call remedies. So teachers are compensated for the oversized classes. 2 academic classes that are in here, both are at Qualicum Secondary School. One is the BA English Language Development, which is a class that also takes in our international students. So it's an English language learning class. So it does have international students in there, as well as our Physics 11. Some of our senior science classes are hard to have 2 sections of. And so we did go oversized in this Physics 11 class as of September 30th that put it to 31. And so I'm just reporting as per expectations.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson, and that is an expectation and has to be submitted to Government Ministry of Education and Childcare. Ms. Young, Trustee Young.
Yeah, just to put this in a bit of context, I've worked in, I don't know, a lot of different districts, and I've worked as a counselor in a couple, and different districts will ask counselors to load at the end of the year, in June. They'll ask counselors to load their classes in different ways. And one of the things that I like about this district is they don't say, oh, well, load your class to 40 because we know we'll be losing some students. And other districts, 35, 40 in a high school classroom in June is not unusual. And that's why I like this district. So thanks.
Thanks, Trustee Young. Okay, Dr. Jory, some comments.
Yep, and just a little bit of context there. My understanding there is actually a second block of physics. And I might have this wrong, but I believe there's a second one at 14 kids, and there were a number of attempts to balance those 2. But just with student choice, the combinations of electives that kids had taken, it was not feasible to do anything further on that. And so we went, the principal went the route of 31 in 1 and the remedy. Is that correct, Ms. Wilson?
Yes, there was some balancing between the 2 semesters and what different senior science courses the students want to take. So we try and accommodate what it is that the students are, what their goals and aspirations are.
Yeah, that can be difficult when, they have other courses they want to take in a second term, that this is the only option they have in the first term. And this is the magic of the magic wall of timetabling that I can tell you is a nightmare to look at, let alone try to figure it out. Thank you very much, Ms. Wilson. And then on to yours and Director of Instruction, Mr. Terpstra's report on educational programs update. Over to you, and you can decide who's going first and second.
Good evening, everyone. A couple of things that I'd like to share out from the education side. One, start off with echoing President Woods's acknowledgement of the Provincial Pro D Days. As the person responsible for approving all those, we were close to 150 teachers participating in their PSAs around the province. And one great thing, as we all know, sitting on this team's board meeting, is that now people are able to go to the conferences via Teams or Zoom and participate from in district, and it really gains a lot more exposure to the learning. On I want to just share out from the Ministry of Education, FSAs, the Foundation Skills Assessment, while almost complete in district, the scoring and results will be delayed due partially to the BCGEU's job action, which we're all excited to hear has been resolved. As well, the November grad assessments have been canceled, grade 10 and 12. For now, this for our district is not a main session anyway. It's really just a catch-up session for students. So very few people in our district would have been writing it, and they'll have a chance to catch up in January. We had 6 schools, elementary schools, just 2 weeks ago join numeracy learning rounds with Carol Fullerton, as Superintendent Jory mentioned. And we look forward to our last session in January, which is actually going to be in French. So all of our Oceanside elementary teachers will be able to participate. And I know for some of you on the screen, that's not a big deal, but it is rare that we actually get a French Pro D in French outside the actual French Language Association events. Yeah, we had 35 middle year teachers who attended Weaving Local Indigenous Ways of Knowing and Literacy with Leighton Schneller. We're super excited. Part 2 is on December 3rd. And we're going to use, for those of you that are familiar with our local timeline that was revealed at the district day by our Indigenous Ed department. So that will be a resource for our learning round with Mr. Schneller in our classrooms. Happy to announce that the French Advisory Council, the Tech and AI Working Group, and the Assessment and Communication Student Learning Working Group signups are coming to emails near you this week. And we're excited for both teachers and admin to join those groups as we work to improve and gain feedback from the system on those actual topics. And of course, French Advisory includes parents as well. From the Career Ed department, and because this falls on the day of the next board meeting, so and I know trustees enjoy these events, Try Trade is happening at Bolinas on November 25th for all grade 8 students. There's a later event that will happen at KSS. Really excited that grade 8 students will have a chance to experience 12 trade slash career skills events. So everything from your traditional trades, but including hairdressing and aesthetics this year. And we even have the ambulance service coming in and presenting to our students. So exciting things on the education front, and I'll pass it over to Ms. Wilson.
Thank you.
Try trades are so much fun. Everybody should go. Drop in. Sorry.
Just a couple updates from me. I'm going to share my screen again, and this is something Director of Instruction and I have been working on with our literacy plan this year. This is still a draft. I was told today that there's one date that's in conflict with another event, so the November 20th needs to change, and I think we need to all get better at looking at the district calendar. But this is part of our literacy plan. I think we've shared before the board around the dollars that were assigned to our district around professional learning for our teachers, our support staff, our principals, as well as making sure that we're encouraging parents to look at what literacy looks like and means. So this is our start. We have a little working group and working with our district teacher who's supporting literacy. Some of the work has already begun. You heard Director Terpstra talk about the work that we're doing with Leighton Schneller, who, by the way, has been in our district and in our community working alongside teachers for over 20 years and continues to embrace and excite and enhance the learning of any educator that gets the privilege of working alongside him. So we've already had our October 21st one. We had all of our kindergarten / grade 1, anybody that was teaching K or K1 come together and look at some work with POPI, which is a provincial outreach for primary and early educators, I think. I need to get my correct acronym for that. Rudy, you can help there if I provincial outreach for early learning, I think it is. We're moving in to November, where we've asked Tandy Gunn to come back and do some work with our teachers. If you recall, Tandy Gunn was our literacy support teacher for many years before she moved into the administration role, and is well respected by our educators. And so she's going to lead some learning for a couple of rounds. Part of the in-services that we're doing, and the January the 8th date I was told today is also going to change. We've got a facilitator coming in, and this is part of in-service. And the difference between in-service and professional learning is when we're asking our teachers that this is something we want them to use, we do the release time and we do the in-service training versus a professional learning opportunity for teachers to come forward and want to look at how they can work on or change their practice or learn something new that's a strategy that they can use in their classroom. So that's in draft still. Thought I'd share with the board tonight that this is some of the work that we're doing. Also want to share with you that we are registered and we are going to participate in the Youth Development Index, the YDI, in January with all of our grade 11s. If you recall, the data that we got from that last time we did it really helped. I provided student voice. It allowed us to listen to what our youth were saying in our community, and it also compared what our youth was saying to other communities and what we needed to do and where we needed to focus on. I particularly enjoyed having the youth come together and look at the data themselves and give input on what they thought the data was saying, and also give us some recommendations. They were very blunt and very clear with us in terms of what and how we needed to be listening to their voice. The other exciting thing that we're doing with a small working group is we've become part of BC Children's Hospital looking at mental health and wellness. We've sent to them all of our data that we have around youth mental health and wellness. So that will be in the McClure report, our previous YDI, our student learning satisfaction surveys. We've also sent them some surveys that we've done in-house. They look at all that data, and we've got a working session with them on November the 5th, and they're going to pull all that data together and give some primary focus areas that we should plan out for the next 3 years in terms of what we should be working towards to make sure we're working on youth mental health and well-being. So that's November the 5th, and we're looking forward to that. Thanks.
That's very exciting about the BC Children's Hospital analysis of that many forums coming together to collaborate and then collapse their information to us will, I'm sure, be extremely informative. And the YDI is always very informative to hear how the students see the data. And trustees, are there any comments, questions of Ms. Wilson or Mr. Terpstra? Seeing none, I'll move on then to Education Committee of the Whole report. Trustee Young, pages 28 to 35 in your agenda this evening, with a motion coming. No, sorry, it was coming forward on finance. Sorry.
Yeah. A motion?
Sorry.
I don't have it down. Yeah, so the reason that there's more pages on this is because the presentation, we weren't able to get the presentation up when we were in the meeting. So I wanted to make sure that people honored the students from Arrington Elementary School and got a chance to take a look at what their presentation was. It's far better than what I reported. You can see what we did. I kind of thought that we had settled everything at the good old Education Committee. We'd settled the time and we'd settled the list of topics and so on and so forth. And then we looked at November and we realized that the second Tuesday in the month is November the 11th, Remembrance Day. It is a holiday. Many people don't work on holidays. So we moved it to November the 12th, which is just what we did. So hopefully everything will settle a bit. The 2 o'clock time was decided based on some input from our administrators. They felt that that was a good time for kids to come out of class and then they could go and catch buses. I don't really think that I have much more to say, except we've got a lot of upcoming topics, and some of them I think are going to be really interesting. And so take a look at that. And I think, you know, Associate Superintendent Wilson, what you just talked about might become an ed committee topic as well. And certainly the early learning, the literacy screener will have a big presentation in January. So lots going on at ed committee. You should come and join us. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Seeing no questions from trustees, I'll turn to Finance and Operations Committee of the Whole. Trustee Kellogg, pages 36 to 38 in your package this evening with some 2 recommendations coming forward. Trustee Kellogg.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So we have a recommendation that the board, our first recommendation is that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum receive the 2025-2028 financial plan as presented.
Could I have a seconder, please, trustees? Thank you, Trustee Young. Any commentary by Mr. Amos? I don't want to put him on the spot, but this is a very valuable document, I think, that everybody should review. Very informative. Mr. Amos, do you have any comments?
Do you mind if I just take 5 minutes? Because I absolutely agree that, again, it sets the tone. I know I did a walkthrough with the finance and operations, but just pointing out a couple of pages
Sure. Yeah.
alongside
Please.
the conversation we've had already. I'm going to take my lead from Associate Superintendent and share my screen if I may.
Please.
If I can find it now. There it is.
Don't forget to hit the plus button.
Hit the
Mr.
plus
Amos.
button. Okay, plus on the bottom. There it is. Plus, plus, plus. Okay. So again, just to remind folks, I'm now on page 52 of the agenda, or 13 of the financial year end. And I'm not going to go into the details of the first 13 pages of this, but it certainly is worth the read. I certainly think that folks should get a sense of what the 25-28 years look like for the district, because it really is an opportunity for even myself and the senior team to get an understanding of what's ahead and navigating going forward. So segueing from, we talked about the current enrollments, we talked about Associate Superintendent, and we didn't plan this because it actually works out well that she was showing you the cohorts, K-12 cohorts, because that's what's driving our enrollment over the next 3-4 years kind of thing, is that lowering of the cohort. And many of you who've sat in on the budget cycles, the wrap up in March, April, May kind of thing. The last couple of years, it's been all about the cohorts in terms of the declining cohorts and that exiting grade 12 with the incoming kindergarten. And that truly has a large impact on a stable school district. We're not growing leaps and bounds. We're not gaining net migrations at the cohort levels. But what we are definitely experiencing is smaller cohorts or smaller grades with exiting graduating class. And that is pressuring our enrollment and pressuring it downward. And that's what you're effectively seeing here. And so what you're seeing, and many of you recognize this in past forms, is the blue being our regular programming, bricks and mortar, we used to call it, orange, or I guess it's orange, alternate program, and then the online learning being the gray. And so over the course of time, our online learning, it ballooned during COVID and then has since gone down in enrollment back to our normal enrollment rates. Our alternate rates, alternate sizes are tending to be with the same value, but in the blue area, that's where those cohorts are expressing themselves in the form of this declining enrollment over the course of time. So absolutely, that's pressuring our enrollment, and naturally that feeds into our planning cycle of what we do next. Enrollment funds us. there's no two ways about it, that there's obviously a direct attribute of the funding is of the enrollment is about funding. And so naturally, because it feeds the enrollment program, what you're seeing, and again, I'm not trying to delve into the details, but again, what you're seeing on this next table is that change from previous years. So we had a small growth, but over the course last year, we saw the first decline. This is now beginning 25-26, the current year. We talked about the enrollment decline that we felt and will be feeling. And so again, it's going down. It's going to soften a little bit to a decline of 73 to a decline of 60 with our best estimates. And again, it is predicated on some of the Beauregard numbers. It's predicated on what we know locally. As we look around our school, our district, we look at the developments as best we can, get an understanding of how many kids are driving those developments or how many kids are coming out of those, those housing buildings and the condominiums and that kind of stuff. So we are mindful of what's going on around us and try to recognize that in our planning process. So clearly funding is naturally attached to these kids. And so we're going to recognize over the course of time, our funding is going to start, or our revenues are going to start going down. And so that feeds into these estimates going forward. Have a look at the funding assumptions. At this point, without any bargained mandates or any signed agreements, we don't know what the collective agreement is going to add to our values. So remembering that over the last 3 years, the collective agreements were negotiated provincially and provided fairly robust salary and wage adjustments and benefit adjustments. And that reflects into our funding. But because we don't know those numbers yet, basically we're indicating what you'll see on the dollar charts is that we're not expecting any change in the values because we just don't know any different. So again, it's just a math equation, estimating some assumptions, making some assumptions on the funding, and then casting it forward to what we think we're going to need for FTE. And so naturally, because we're going to be losing funding, we have to consider the fact that our staffing is going to have to reflect that. And so what you got at the end of the day is natural salaries and benefits are going to be going down ever so slightly. Our operating costs are going to be going up ever so slightly. And again, recognizing that utilities tends to go up, supplies and services tends to go up based on inflationary factors. And so we're trying to cast that forward for 2 years. It really wraps up to this final statement here, which pulls into our operating revenues, our grants, and any other revenues that we've got coming forward that we know about. Marrying that with our salaries and benefit costs and our supplies and services. And at the end of the day, we balanced our budget in 25-26 with some fairly large FTE reductions to account for the decrease in enrollment. We'll be doing that going forward. But again, it's all because we've got an operating surplus of about 700,000 against our June 30th, 25 financial statements. And the messaging that I've been sharing with the board is we need to build that back. Some of that will come, some of our surpluses will come from the sale of facilities. We chatted about that today. And some of it can be internally funded through operating surpluses that we basically transfer at the end of the year, operating surpluses into local capital for other needs. So really this is about casting forward what we think is going to happen and how do we best get there in terms of refilling some of these coffers that we've drawn down. So 1.6 drawn down to 1.2, drawn down to another 700 at the end of this year. So slow increases, but again, it's recognizing that we need to refill that reserve, and this is how we do it. we need those reserves. And again, the conversation occurs on these next pages, local capital reserves for other reserves. So there's a commentary in here in terms of what those reserves are used for. Sometimes they're committed. In the past, we used some of those funds to fund the board's portion of the Bolinas track contribution. We received additional funding that shows up on our statements as other provincial capital, and you can see that that's committed to, needless to say, the Qualicum Beach Child Care Center. Over the course of time, we've received funds from the community and from developers to purchase land or to go towards the purchase of a land. That sits on our land in our land capital account, but again, it's committed. And so what you're seeing is these small little uncommitted that we have if we really were to need it for other capital. So we do know that we have some local capital projects that need to be funded over the course of time. We've talked about what we've used local capital for in the past, the bus route software, which pays for itself in a matter of 3-4 years kind of thing. The White Fleet replacement, we were able to find some funds for that a couple of years ago. Again, the contribution for the Bolinas track. A number of years prior to this table was our copier replacement. And so we talked about it at Finance and Ops, that basically the copier replacement needs to be refreshed once again. In a perfect world, you're refreshing it annually, you're providing funds annually for it, but because we own our copiers, it only comes up but once every 5 or 6 years, and so it's coming due. So again, this is really just just about informing the board to make these decisions and to allow us to make these decisions, as well as the public, for the transparency process of what's going on behind the scenes in terms of our planning processes. IT tech refresh, the same thing, putting aside some dollars for additional hardware, servers, laptops, or any other hardware that goes into the system, as well as behind the walls. Sometimes we have to invest money in the wiring behind the walls to improve our speed, our IT speeds, our hardware speeds. So that's, again, I just wanted to take you through that just so you're not necessarily, again, it's all part of us trying to share this out. I'm trying to stop sharing here, but every time I go up there, it's hiding. There it is. Okay, back to stop sharing.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
and over to you.
No, it's a very valuable report, Mr. Amos, that I think people need to sort of keep on their side of their desks and beside them, as to reflecting where we're going and what we anticipate. And I think it answers maybe some of the DPAC questions of funding and enrollment and things like that, but it is not lost on us that this is a moving target. Trustee Young and then Trustee Austin, and then.
Yeah, I just want to echo not only the last few pages of this, but the first part, because this is more than a financial report. It actually gives a really good kind of overview of what we're trying to do here in our school district. And it is one of the very few reports that I print out and look at constantly, especially as we get into budget, because when we get into that very long and hopefully quite transparent process of developing the budget, it is a document that's invaluable. So I'm hoping that maybe parents could make people aware that this document exists, and I encourage people to take a look at it, because it does give us a really good overview.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Trustee Austin.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ron. Just talking about enrollment projections, I thought I would add a little bit of historical context. Way back in 2011, when school reconfiguration was being considered, we worked a lot with the Berger numbers. People had concerns about that, and there was also the local knowledge. There was also a few different places. And so I think about that, you know, how does Berriger keep on top of all this ever-changing developments and things like that? So I actually went back and looked at some of our Berriger projections over the years. I looked at them from 2011 to see how, and they projected out 10 years. So I looked at how accurate they were, where we were at in 2021, and I have to say they were fairly bang on. And through the years, they have been very close. So I think, and as Peter talked about at our last Fin and Ops, it's not necessarily a report that we receive on paper. It's data that is continually being updated that we can access at any given time, and it sort of changes as circumstances changes, not just in our district, but all over the province. So after doing some of that historical research and going, well, just how accurate have they been over the years? And it does bear fruit that they are pretty accurate.
Thank you, Trustee Austin. Yeah, they draw from a number of, from child benefit tax credits to the whole, it's all mixed into birth rates and everything. So it is a quite intensive platform of information that we draw our reporting from. So I believe the motion was moved by Trustee Kellogg.
I was just going to say there was one other question in the chat from Marina.
Usually we take those questions, Marina, at the public question period. So I'm hoping it can hold till the end.
Of course, no problem.
Thank you. The move by Trustee Kellogg, seconded by Trustee Young, that the financial plan be received as presented. Are there any questions, trustees? Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And we'll get back to Marina on your question. Part 2 of the Fins and Ops Committee of the Whole, Trustee Kellogg, the proposal for collaboration on safe routes to school. Would you like me to just turn it directly over to Trustee Austin, or do you have any?
No, do you want me to read the recommendation or do you want?
Maybe let Trustee Austin reflect on, because we left it sort of hanging as an open discussion at the Fins and Ops meeting, and she worked with our Secretary Treasurer to create the motion. So Trustee Austin.
Yes, it was a great discussion. Thank you, everybody. And thank you very much to our PACs for continuing to advocate for the safety in these areas. It continues to be a frustration, I think, not just for parents, but for the school district, for teachers, for everybody around the schools, and I would say even for residents that live in those neighborhoods. So following our conversation at the Finance and Ops Committee, we requested a motion come to the board, and that is that the Board of Education of School District 69 Qualicum work with Springwood and École Oceanside Elementary School administration and parents to develop, through collaboration with local governments, the province and ICBC, short, medium, and long-term road safety plans and action steps for those 2 sites. And I think I'll do these 2 together. That the Qualicum School District pursue avenues for a provincial safety review around École Oceanside Elementary School. I will just add that second part was put in there. I understand there was one done for Springwood. The parents of Oceanside have been requesting that the province do this. It hasn't happened yet. I think this is something that the school district, we can take the lead on. You know, we don't have jurisdiction over the roads. We don't have jurisdiction in putting in sidewalks and stoplights and stop signs and things like that. But we can certainly take the lead and advocate for the safety of our students. I would like to see our school district perhaps get, you know, these people in the same room together, the different levels of government, and actually have them talking together, because I think sometimes there's a little confusion on whose jurisdiction is what and where. But if we can get that sorted out, and we can actually start hammering away at some real solutions.
Could I ask for a seconder to trustee Austin's
Oh.
motion? Thank you, trustee Kellogg, and then I see questions from trustee Kurland. And go ahead, trustee Kurland.
So, trustee Austin, I didn't hear it entirely, but is the RCMP included in that group that you were talking about?
They are not, but that's an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, it's amazing what intermittent enforcement can do to controlling traffic around a school.
Can we make
So if
that
you
as
would-
just a friendly amendment?
Yeah, please.
So it could be with local governments, the province, the RCMP and ICBC, something to that effect in the middle.
Mhm.
Trustee Young.
Yeah, thanks for writing this, trustee Austin. You are definitely a good motion writer. I'm not going to repeat all of the things that I said at Finance and Operations because I'm trying to be succinct at the regular board meetings since we record all our meetings now. But I did want to say I've been walking by Ecole Oceanside lately, just on my walks, and I've noticed that there's a mileage thing. I think maybe trustee Kellogg, you might have had something to do with this, that tells people how fast they're going. Okay. Anyway, it seems to be working, and I'm really impressed with how quickly people brake when they see, oh, whoops, I'm going far too fast. So
Yeah.
that's helped a bit.
That's community policing, yes. Trustee Kellogg.
I actually think that the school actually supplied them. I think Ronnie was saying that they were that Angel had some hand in getting them.
And in the
Oh,
chat,
it's
Randy
possible.
says,
I hadn't noticed them there before, so, and Angel's moved on now to high school, so I don't know. But yay, whoever did it.
no, all calming
They do-
measures.
They do community policing of speeding and so on and so forth through Oceanside Community Safety. But I think the ones that you're referring to, the school actually purchased, or the PAC purchased at that school.
Cool.
Okay,
And
so
I think what the school was saying in regards to that is somebody has to go and put them out and take them in. Does somebody remember that from the Finance and Ops? And that was a bit of a problem, having volunteer
that's been a
parents to
problem.
take them in and out.
Yeah, and there is a note in chat, so thank you to the PAC for doing that. Randy, maybe, well, or Leanne, maybe you can pass that on to the PAC with thanks.
it is difficult. I think the commentary was at Fins and Ops to finding parents consistently able to do all this stuff at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. And that is a measure, that is a calming measure. I think they're positive things. But I think the notion behind trustee Austin's motion is to push a little harder to
Oh, absolutely.
to more
Yeah.
official routes from government.
Yeah.
Trustee Austin, some final comments to you, and then I'll call a vote.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. PAC has done an enormous amount of work. Both PACs at all our schools actually do an enormous amount of work around safety for the students. And as Eve just said, we want to elevate it now and really put the push on and pressure on this.
Good discussion, folks, and a valuable motion, I think, for us to entertain this evening. I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, now over to me and the policy committee of the whole. I think there's a rather in-depth presentation in the report, pages 62 to 65. We still have a number of policies pending, but I think we'll hit the ground running at our next meeting. But our first policy this evening to bring for first reading is Board Policy 700, Safe, Caring, and Inclusive School Communities. First reading to adopt the revisions of Board Policy 700, Safe, Caring, and Inclusive Schools. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Young. Are there any further comments, trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Board Policy 709, the Board of Education bursary. This is page 70 to 72 in your package. That the Board of Education, School 69, approve first reading to adopt revisions to Board Policy 709, Board of Education bursary. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Are there any questions, trustees? I think we made some clarifications there regarding sites and some ideas that applicants per site is clearly identified, I think now. So seeing no hands, all those in favor? Thank you. Carried. And now the administrative procedure. This was a discussion, as you'll see in the notes, of a response to unexpected health emergencies, which has been a ministerial requirement made in about August over the summer regarding the lock zone and AEDs in schools. And we felt as a group, our policy committee as a whole, that it did not require an actual policy statement, that we would have an administrative procedure. So I would move that the Board of Education, School 69 Qualicum, approve the administrative procedure response to unexpected health emergencies. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Kellogg. Any further comments, trustees? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. So there are no reports from outside organizations, so I will turn this back to Trustee Austin, who is bringing forward a motion this evening regarding what I think folks have heard of from other groups, cessation of private funding for private schools. I'll allow Trustee Austin to lead us off in this discussion and prepare us for the motion.
Yes, well, it's right there, basically all in the rationale. This is something, you know, as trustees, we talk a lot about, and we were recently at Vista, and I think, you know, a few of us are sort of spurred on to elevate to Vista and get it back to the provincial body of the Trustees Association ultimately at the end, but it starts with us locally, I think. Private schools in the province are funded by public dollars to the tune of almost $500 million a year. I thought I had to really think this one through, because I do understand there are some schools out there that are privately funded that I really do think, you know, are really helping some students that maybe just don't find their niche in the public school system, as well as, you know, there are some First Nations independent schools. But in doing my research, you know, of that $500 billion, there are those schools, and they're only funded 5%. So $25 million of that, almost $500 million. And I think they're, you know, they're still worth while keeping. But the rest of them, as was pointed out, are there, and it is not a place where we see equity in our school system. Therefore, I have 3 recommendations. Would you like them all done at once or separately?
I think they all work well together, because it's sort of a continuum of where the motion needs to go in our trustee world of taking things to our annual general meeting. So I suggest to the trustees that we do these all at once. So Trustee Austin.
Okay. That the Board of Education of Qualicum School District write a letter to the BC Minister of Education and Childcare advocating for the cessation of public funding for private schools and for the reallocation of those funds to strengthen public education. And that the board invite our partner groups within the district to be co-signatories to this letter, and that this motion be presented at the Vancouver Island School Trustees Association branch meeting of the BC School Trustees Association in November, requesting Vista's endorsement of the motion, that Vista also write a letter of support, and that Vista advance the motion as a branch resolution to the BCSTA annual general meeting in April.
And I might just say April 2026.
Right.
So we got
Thank you.
time frame on it, so people see
Thank
the
you.
timeline. Could I have a seconder, please, to trustee Austin's motion? Trustee Kellogg, thank you. Are folks willing to or wanting to add commentary? Trustee Young?
Yeah, I fully support the motions. I do have some difficulty with funding to continue for special needs focused private schools because I believe so strongly in the inclusion model. And public money going to private schools that work with a particular group of students is not inclusion to me. So I am prepared to support this 100%, except for that piece of the rationale. And because that's not in your motion, I think I can give 100% support to that. Thanks.
Thank you, trustee Young. Trustee Kellogg? Oh, my,
Oh,
sorry, trustee
sorry.
Kurland first, sorry. Got my 2s and 3s mixed up.
Oh, do you want me to go then? Barry, are
Nope.
you gonna go?
Barry, you're on
mic's-
mute.
You're
You're
on
on
mute.
No, you're. Okay,
I
you're still
thought
on.
I thought I unclicked it. Sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead, Carol.
Oh,
Oh.
okay. I was just going to say that I think that if public schools were funded appropriately, some of those kids that are not in our system would
Exactly.
be because we would have the staffing power to provide what those kids need. Currently, we don't have the funds, and the government's promise didn't seem to appear. So I feel that if we had the funding that is being pumped into private schools,
Exactly.
we would be able to better support the kids that would be going to public school. And I think all kids should be able to go to public school and their needs be met, though.
Thanks,
So I agree
trustee
with that.
Kellogg. You've said it much better than me.
Well, we
And
can,
trust-
we
Wait
can
a
craft
second, I
that
have
within the
trustee-
body of the
I have-
letter.
I have trustee Kurland and then trustee Austin. Yes.
So, I'm going to tell you a story about my daughter who is living in Australia now, and she was a graduate of honors from Laurier. And she started off at Bowser, and grade 1, she was having a really tough time. And the principal of Bowser at the time, Ms. Wilson, suggested that she only attend half day. We did that for a while, and then she wasn't making it. She wasn't happy, and she was one of the first students in Keep. And so she spent up to grade 4, I think, with Karen Katcher and Keep, had a very successful educational program. And then she was craving other kids and went to, ended up at Morning Glory School. And so she did 2 years there and then went back to Qualicum. I guess it was Qualicum Middle School then, grade 7 and 8, and had a terrible time. She was bullied. She was basically an only child. And so she wasn't used to growing up in a context of a whole bunch of other kids, in the family. And so she didn't understand quite what, was being demanded of her in this school. And we took her and she went to a private school in Thailand called Nakorn Payap, which is it was affordable to us, but it's when you see a 14-year-old driving a Mercedes SLK to school, you get an idea of what this place was like. And because of that, she came back and for grade 10, 11, and 12 and enrolled at KSS with Jesse as the principal and got herself in with a bunch of very high achieving students and successfully completed her high school career and ended up as an honor student graduating from Laurier. So what my point of all this is that, I'm of mixed minds with private school. What we have of private schools is basically a 2-tier system, like if we had a medical system, having a private medical system, for people that can afford it. And at the same time, we have to consider the children are the important ones here because they're the ones benefiting from this educational system. I had a Chinese student a student from Hong Kong who was living here with his mother, enrolled at KSS. Brilliant young man. Loved him in grade 10 science. He was just a hothouse. And he was there just to learn English because then he was going on to Brentwood afterward. So, my point of all this is that we have this system that if you took away the funding to places like Brentwood or Shawnigan Lake, the parents would suck it up. They wouldn't know the difference. They'd just say, oh, okay, things went up another 30,000 a year. But then you have these other students that are like the ones at Morning Glory that maybe they can't make it in the regular system that, fulfills a real need for these kids. And I'm not sure that if you, like, what we should say is that we need the $500 million to go into public education. Don't cut the private schools. You keep funding it if you want to, but we could use the extra $500 million to support us in what we're doing. And the motion says, I believe, I can't remember exactly, it says that the money go into, did you say public education, Julie?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
I'd like to be friendly amendment. I'd like to be a little more specific because what we need is not just public education. We need cafeterias. We need aids. We need, increased teacher to pupil ratios. We need all of this stuff that, money would help. We could use a swimming pool here and there too. So I would like to say that, we somehow do a friendly amendment to just not say public education, but to maybe be a little more specific with it. I mean, I'm supporting the motion because, I think that private schools may have a use, but we could also use a lot more funding too. And that's, that has to happen because, just scrimping along here is we're doing a really, really good job with what we have. But, it's, we could use a few more funds directed in this endeavor that we're doing. And it's a powerful endeavor, it's the backbone of our society. And if you look south at a few places and realize the level of ignorance and stupidity that exists in the world, it's frightening. And I think we're trying to do the best that we can with what we got.
Thanks, Trustee Carolan. Trustee Austin, would you like to respond? I think public education encompasses all of the pieces you've identified. I don't know if we parse it out and make a list, it might be a bit difficult, but Trustee Austin, this is your motion.
Yeah, one of the reasons to put this motion forward is, we had our meeting with Minister Bear. It's been made quite clear to all the school districts and health authorities, et cetera, in the province that the cupboard is bare at the provincial level. They do not have it. It's falling on deaf ears to continue asking for more funding. This is asking for reallocation of funding. It's money that the province already has, that it's already just putting out there. And we're saying, let's reallocate it to true public education. So, I think from my perspective, that gains a little more traction than just saying, give us more money. Just reallocate what you already have budgeted in the budget and put it back into public education. I understand what you're saying, Barry, but I also understand what Elaine and Carol are saying. If school districts perhaps were to be reallocated some of that money, there are some school districts that offer within the public school system things like the Montessori approach, Waldorf approach within under their umbrella, but if we had that kind of, if we had some extra funding to actually start exploring those kind of things, we might be able to capture some of those kids that you're talking about. Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Austin. Trustee Young.
I think the other part of this for me is all the unfunded liabilities that we have to cover that, over the years have kind of, and I think Matt from MATA kind of alluded to this, that, there's great programs that we want to support. We want to support our childcare spaces and so on and so forth. And then, but there's the funding doesn't continue, oh, great program, but now the funding's gone. So we can't, I liken budgeting in the school district somewhat to how I budget at home. So what we're doing now is we're selling assets to reinvest in some assets. But that has a limited lifespan. And when I was a girl, we didn't have private school funding in this province. It's something new. And because it's new, it's easier to turn the clock back and say, you know, we had a good public school alternative that supported the students. Let's go back to that.
Thanks, Trustee Young. Any other trustees with commentary? And I think we've had the reach out from other partners to assist in the letters. So there's some actionables here. But for now, we have the motion before us. Moved by Trustee Austin, seconded by Trustee Kellogg. So I'll call a question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, just a last but not least item for this evening, Provincial Council. This is the annual meeting or meeting twice a year, call it that, of the BC School Trustees Association, where one representative from each of the school districts entertains emergent and critical motions that are before our organization. The bylaws and constitution of BCSTA changed at our annual meeting last year, and it slimmed down the role of our provincial council somewhat, but it is still a place where we, as a council, review the budget for the year for our association and approve audited financial statements as well. So this past Friday, Carol and I attended this meeting. I was able to attend the first half, and my summary report is based on the commentary of the CEO and the president, and basically highlighted activities of the BCSTA, which are now going to culminate in the new year with a best policies guide for all school districts in the province, to have as a template for practice on all the topics we have within our policy manual. There is a new trustee learning and professional growth series that will be launched in the new year. We are in the auspicious time of our term as well to be headed to a campaign for election of trustees. So there'll be materials coming to the organization regarding messaging and championing public education. And you never know, our message of our last discussion may resonate through that avenue as well. The next meeting of our school trustees professional growth will be, our professional development is November 27th and 29th in Vancouver. There was considerable talk about the National School Foods Program and the announcement by our Prime Minister regarding that as ongoing stable funding. There is also very much a look at right now throughout Canada regarding vaping and vaping products being flavored, and an initiative by the Canadian School Boards Association to ban flavored vaping products as a health and safety measure for our students. The budget was next, and then I had to step out, so I'll turn that portion over to Trustee Kellogg, who was able to attend and cover the rest of our agenda for that day. Trustee Kellogg, thank you for stepping in.
Yeah, so the audited financial statements for 2024-2025 fiscal year were presented. The audit confirmed that the BCSTA remains in stable financial position with no significant concerns raised by the auditor. And the Provincial Council reviewed and received the report as presented. Grants status an update on grant funding was provided outlining revenues and expenditures up to June 30th, 2025. All grants are being managed within the budget's perimeters and reporting requirements have been met. There were no concerns. The BC STA budget planning, initial planning discussions began for the 2026-2027 BC STA budget. The focus will be on maintaining financial stability while continuing to support core member services. A lengthy discussion took place regarding the cost and fees associated with the Canadian School Board Association. Members expressed concern about affordability and value, particularly as districts continue to face financial pressures. The Provincial Council emphasized the need for careful consideration for all expenditures within the upcoming budget cycle. The BC STA affiliated membership fees, a recommendation was presented that the Provincial Council approve maintaining the same membership dues for all affiliates while recognizing the rights and supports may differ by category. The recommendation was generally supported pending final budget considerations. And then the AGM rule of order, Council reviewed the AGM voting process following feedback collected through a Slido survey. Members discussed ways to streamline and reduce excessive time spent for the voting procedures. While discussion was limited, there was general agreement that the improvements to the process could enhance efficiency and members' engagements in future AGMs. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Somewhat nuts and bolts of some of our activities that we do, and not very sort of jazzy, but this is part of what we need to monitor as school trustees as we relate to our work and the BC School Trustees Association. No board correspondent, no new or unfinished business, public question period. I think Marina, Mr. Terpstra has provided for you the website link to the financial plan, and I'll call up the chat. I think there's some comments and things like that, but people have provided answers for you. But I will open the floor to public question period. And please do raise hand because I've got 3 screens at the go here. Now 2. Are there any other questions of folks this evening? Seeing none, then I'll thank everyone for very thoughtful discussions today and lots of new information being shared in our educational side of the house, and finance and budget and planning and things like that all come within the purview of the work of the board. This is a meeting of the board held in public. And so I thank you, everyone that's able to join us this evening. And could I ask for a mover to adjourn the meeting? So moved, Trustee Kellogg. Got 100% record. There we go. Thank you, trustees, for joining us this evening, and have a pleasant evening. And I don't know the score of the game, and I won't share it. Not allowed to share.
Back to the game. See you later.
Back to the game. Back to the game.